From the Empire State to the Golden Gates, this is Quad Radio USA.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
Now, with all the dirt from the world of ATV motocross and GNCC racing, here's Mr. 10 Seconds, Rodney Tomlin.
And a good evening to everyone as we welcome you to Quad Radio Live for this November 7th, 2012. It is a Wednesday night in Quad Radio USA. I want to say thanks to our friends over at Impact Solutions Group. Of course, ImpactSolutionsATV.com on the World Wide Web, and at Facebook, it's just simply Impact Solutions. They are your factory-authorized service center for Elko suspension, located at 985 Harris Highway in Parkersburg, West Virginia. You can phone them up at 304-863-0025. And again, you can find all that information right there on the quadradio.com home website page at quadradio.com. You can also link that through Facebook and through ImpactSolutionsATV.com as well. Big show coming up tonight as we've got a little history going on here with Chad Duval, former ATV GNCC pro, going to be talking with us tonight as well, kind of crossing over with the two-wheel because his son is one of the top two-wheel motorcycle off-road racers in the world. Just got back from Europe there a few weeks ago, probably a month or so ago actually, with the ISDE and things like that. So we're going to talk about old school GNCC ATV, plus we're going to cross over and talk a little bit about some two-wheel stuff as well. Later tonight, coming up, we have got here on Quad Radio Live Tyler Hamrick, the number 726 Ohio crew's got some big information that he's going to be passing along to us. As well, we have got Kyle Fix, who's always got a fix on everything as far as ATV motocross is concerned. So we'll be checking in with him and finding out what is going on as well. As we say, without further ado, good evening and welcome to one Chad and Thad Duval this evening. Good evening, guys. I hope you guys are there and I'm pushing the right buttons tonight.
Yeah, we're here, and Dad's here too, so it's pretty cool.
That's great. So that means that Thad Duval is the one that's talking with us, and he is from the two-wheel side of things. And this ought to be pretty interesting stuff, Thad. So welcome over to the two-wheel thing. And I do want to say that it was pretty interesting to see what you stirred up there a couple of weeks ago on Facebook from your perspective as a two-wheel guy, talking about how some of the guys complain about the four-wheel guys, and say, hey, show some respect out there, man. My dad was a pro ATV GNCC guy. That takes some guts to go out there and do that, and that's probably more man than a lot of people are. And you stirred up a hornet's nest there, which was pretty cool to see, man.
Yeah, I got tired of hearing people talk about it, and, I've seen my dad over the years, and, growing up, I rode quads, and, I rode a lot of his quads, and, I hang out with a lot of quad guys, and, I see how hard them guys work, and, the bike guys, we're pretty good, but the quad guys, they got an extra two wheels, and they're 15 inches wider than what we are, and, I got a lot of respect for those guys, seeing what my dad's done over the years and how I've grown up riding quads, so I really know how it is, so I just got tired of people talking, and some people need to set it straight.
There you go, man. There you go. Set them straight. I like the way you did that. Now, I have respect for both sides of it as well, being from it, just from an enthusiast side. Actually, myself, I grew up riding motorcycles, but in my later age, ridden a lot of ATVs, not competitively in neither respect, but I had a lot of fun. So I respect both sides of it. I know they're both a lot of fun, and that's what the cool thing is. Now, tell me something, Thad. You grew up as the son of one of the great guys in the ATV world. Probably didn't realize what your dad was doing at the time as far as paving the way for a whole new era in ATV racing with the production models there in the GNCC. Do you remember any of that back? Gosh, I guess it's been 10, 12 years or so ago. Whenever he was kind of getting out of it and actually bridging that gap, making those big strides, and then starting to head out of it. Do you remember those days?
Yeah, I definitely remember those days. I may have been young, but those days are just like yesterday. I watched him pretty much develop the Elka suspension. He was the first one ever to kind of help those guys, and he developed that a lot. And you know, he did a lot with Mickey Dunlop with four-stroke tech. You know, he kind of developed everything, and you know, he grew the quad sport into what it is today with the four strokes. You know, everybody was kind of like, well, what are you going to the four strokes for? And you know, I think it was good for him. It was kind of a change after being on the 250R for so many years. And I mean, look what it's done for the sport today. If you look around, there's not very many 250Rs left, and that's cool for me to be able to sit back and watch that and develop it into what it is today. So hopefully I can take that to consideration. Hopefully I can do that one day too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, let me ask you this, and nothing about it, because, I mean, I think it's cool, and it was neat how you excelled at it, but how was there a choice for you in growing up? I mean, I guess there probably wasn't a youth ATV race series in the GNCC whenever you first started, so the two-wheel was obviously the big magnet for you, I guess, at that time, huh?
Yeah, you know, I got a bike when I was 3, and I rode around the yard and had a big crash on it. And I didn't want nothing to do with it. And, you know, Dad, being a quad guy he was, went out and bought me a quad, and, man, I burnt the wheels off of it. You know, I think I rode it till I was all the way, 6 or 7 years old before I even got a bike again. And when I did, you know, it was just kind of, I don't really know why I never stuck with the quads. You know, I still like to ride them, and, you know, it's something I'd like to try. You know, like at Loretta's, I was going to race a quad on Sunday, but it just never panned out. And
really,
you know, yeah. So I don't know why I really got out of the quads on the bikes. I think it was just being different. You know, he kind of had his quad deal going on, and you know, I think I wanted to have my own kind of bike deal one day, and it was kind of a different change for me. And I'm glad I went with two wheels. You know, where I'm at today. You know, maybe I would have been there with quads, but I'm happy on bikes.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I mean, looking at that quad world right now, that's got to be. I mean, looking at that, you probably be guys scratch your head and say, "Man, I'm glad I'm not in that fury, man," because those guys. I mean, it's crazy out there. You have to see them out there walking the tracks and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, them guys are nuts. You know, I'm really good friends with Adam McGill, so I get to see a lot of the quad guys' side of it and everything. And you know, I've rode with him a bunch. I don't understand how them guys can go so fast and stuff that we go that fast in. And it's crazy. You know, it's funny. Like, I'll go ride with McGill, and he's just as fast on a quad as I am on a bike, and it's just crazy how they can carry that much speed and the same speed as we do with two more wheels. It's just crazy.
Yeah, you know, people say, well, it'll be easier on four wheels than it is two, but there's it's not. I mean, you got a lot more factors to factor in out there in the woods on an ATV than you do on a motorcycle. It's a lot skinnier, a lot easier to get it in and out of places, huh?
Yeah. I think we probably both have our difficult places and we both have our easy places. It kind of equals out to where, you know, it's probably the same, takes the same strength and body muscles to do the same. You know, like with quad guys, it's more upper body strength, and with bike guys, it's more kind of like our legs and just our whole body instead of just our upper body. You know, when actually Walker Fowler used to ride on Team Yamaha with me, and you know, we'd go to the gym, and I just couldn't believe his upper body strength. And you know, he said, "Well, I get that from riding quads," and I just couldn't believe how much different things were for quads and bikes, and I got to see a lot of it when he rode on the team with us.
Yeah, and it does. It takes a lot of strength. But now let's talk a little bit about you, man, since obviously you did get away from it. And Chad, you on here with us right now?
Yeah, I'm right here with you, man.
All right. Well, we're going to start talking to you here in just a couple of moments and get your perspective on things. But I did want to kind of touch base with Thad, man. Just want to say congratulations to you on a pretty exceptional first year on a new machine and a new team, basically one that you and your family built there with the Shenandoah Off-Road Champions, and then I guess later on factory-supported Honda team, man.
Yeah, you know, it was good. You know, coming into this year, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, and you know, I've been with Yamaha so long. It was just I needed a change, and things weren't working out. And it was kind of a new life for me, really. And you know, we kind of just built a team from ground zero. I mean, we kind of just built it up and to where it was a factory supported team, and man, it couldn't turn out any better. You know, I got fourth overall this year. I got the number 4 plate for next year, and you know, I was in a pretty heated battle with Rory coming down to the last race, just like Paul Whibley and Caleb Russell was for the championship, and you know, he ended up edging me out for a couple points for the number 3 plate, but you know, I couldn't be more happier with the number 4 plate, and that's great for me. That's a big improvement from what I've been the last couple of years. I've struggled trying to figure out the speed and the consistency, but you know, I think I finally figured it out.
Yeah, I think so. And you finally got that elusive first win, man. That was pretty exceptional as well.
Yeah, you know, I got the first win at Unadilla, my first XC1 career win, and I mean, I couldn't have been any more excited, but I couldn't really celebrate because, you know, we would drive home and then fly out Monday to Germany and do the 6 days and everything. And, you know, I think I let a win slip away from me at the Indiana GNC, and, you know, I was there all day, and I just had a few mistakes towards the end of the race with the bike issues and stuff, but nothing major. And, you know, I really felt like I could have got the win there again. And, you know, it's just somehow, sometimes as the top plays out, you know, second place was good. I got second there. But I really want the win. You know, I talked to McGill and Borstrom guys, and they always say that the first win is the hardest win to get. So hopefully that's the truth, so it'll be easier after that.
Yeah. Has it seemed any easier?
No, not yet. Yeah.
Well, you've kind of got an idea what it's about, and man, I got to commend you on taking that program. And Chad, you as a dad, I mean, you've worked on those grassroots program, especially because of the way that GNCC was in the day that you came. So you kind of had a step ahead of probably what a lot of teams would have at this point, because you went through what Thad's going through right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I'd say he's had it a lot harder because he's had to really go through the growing pains. You know what I mean? His speed has been, you know, phenomenal for years, but this sport's not really a sprinter sport. This is more of a kind of your marathonist. You know what I mean? You're a little bit wisdom age. You know what I mean? You got to put it together for 3 hours, and it's just. When you're racing for 3 hours, it's just less mistakes, you know, and you just got to be precise on it for 3 hours. I mean, you're eligible for a few mistakes, but you just got to put it together. And I think, you know, he was a little bit young, and you know, he was as far as the sprint speed, he's, you know, phenomenal. But like I said, you know, that's kind of the thing about this sport. Not saying a young man can't do it, but I think as you get a little bit older, your body kind of becomes a little more enduring. You know, you can go a lot longer at a good pace.
Yeah, that's for sure. And like you said, that comes with maturity, and I think he's learning that, and the new program getting adapted to that. And you say the sprinting speed. I think, Thad, your sprinting speed probably came in handy whenever you went to the ISDE for your first experience over there.
Yeah, you know, going over there, it was quite a different world. You know, instead of racing 3 hours, we would have pretty much 6 to 8 tests a day. That would only be maybe 10 minutes the longest, and it was just from start to finish. You had to go as hard as you could go, as fast as you could go, and not make a lot of mistakes. And you know, the first day I struggled a little bit figuring it out, but you know, from there on out, it was good. And you know, the sprint speed definitely came out there. Definitely, you know, it was more motocrossy grass tracks and stuff. So I'm glad I had the speed for it. That's for sure.
Well, congratulations for sure on your performance over there. I think you did yourself, and you did the American riders very proud over there. And I think that you probably opened up a new can of worms for yourself and the possibility of a whole separate career as well. I think that the working with GNCC and enduro and stuff like that, that might be something that you might look into a little in the future, or even if you just dabble in it every once in a while and make your mark out there. I think that's going to be pretty impressive. You've been doing pretty well. I think that's pretty awesome, dude.
Yeah, you know, it definitely opened quite a few doors for me, and you know, I've gotten invited back to do some just World and Rounds, which is just a 2-day weekend thing like we do at the GNCCs now. So, it's definitely something I would look forward to and going and doing. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and I'm glad it opened a lot of doors for not only me, but, for my dad, too. He's a full-time mechanic with a full-time job, and I'm sure it's hard for him. He comes home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon from work, and then he's out in the garage till 9 o'clock working on our bikes, getting ready for the weekend. So, it'd be cool, for him to go over and see what the atmosphere is like over there, because he didn't really get to go with me for 6 days, and just opening new doors, that's what I want to do, and, that's what I want to make a career out of, so that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's neat, man. I'm glad that you're able to include your dad and try to include your dad in more and more. It's unfortunate you didn't get a chance to go with you to the ISDE, but it will be pretty neat to be able to travel with you in the future. Now, Thad, looking back, you seem to be pretty versed on the whole ATV scene, man, and you seem to be pretty versed on your dad's history and everything. And that to me tells me you got a pretty good memory. Looking back on it all, how old are you right now?
22.
22. And of the 22 years, I'm sure you've got some special memories and you've heard a lot of good stories. Tell me what some of the most special memories you've got of your dad's career and so forth, looking back on it all right now from his ATV racing experience.
I'd say probably the biggest thing and the coolest thing was when he won the first overall from the pro production. That was the year that, they went to the four strokes and had the pro production class, and everybody was kind of like, well, why are we wasting our time with this class? The four strokes ain't the thing. And for him to go out in that first year and actually win an overall and beat Bill Balance and beat William Oakley and beat all them guys back then, that's pretty cool. Them guys were on specifically built bikes for that, and, he was kind of just on a four-stroke prototype, just trying to get it done. And for him to get it done, that was awesome. That gave me a lot of inspiration. And to this day, I still look back on that and think, man, that was a really cool day for him. And I think it's one thing in his career that he'll always remember, winning that overall. And I always will. I was there that day, and it was a little muddy. And I think being in West Virginia and knowing them conditions, I think it helped us out a bunch. But definitely that would probably be the coolest memory I've had of his career and what he has accomplished.
That's pretty neat. Now, as far as the stories that you've heard your dad tell and things, what's probably the coolest story you've heard him tell?
The coolest story, I don't really have any cool stories. I know some horrible stories about the ball hall, but, I don't want to go there. But I know, let's see. I don't really know any cool stories. I know, I don't even know. Probably the coolest story was about when they set the world record at I think it's called the La Fudd in Las Vegas, when they beat the record on a four-stroke. I think that was pretty cool. And, the stories from the ball are pretty cool, too. Growing up, I've always looked, that's something I want to do in my career, is go do the ball all I can, just so I could say, hey, my dad's done ball and I've done ball, and his stories are pretty wild about the ball, about the Mexicans building death traps and stuff, and that's pretty wild. For him to go do that for, I think he did it for 3 years. And he just kept going back, and that's pretty wild. And the stories he told me about the trails and stuff, that's pretty cool for him to go do that. And then I think I was 15. I actually got to go with him out there to do ball, and man, his stories were right on cue of how it is out there. It was wild, and that was probably one of the coolest stories he's ever told me about ball hall.
Wow, maybe we'll get you to talk a little bit about that in a little bit, Chad.
Yeah.
Sounds like it must have been pretty interesting to have stuck out in his mind like that. Well, Chad, I want to say welcome and congratulations on what you've been able to achieve as a father, a mechanic, a sort of mentor and team owner and team manager there with you and your wife. I know that you guys have worked very hard to get Thad to where he is these days, man.
Oh, yeah. It's been a rough road. There's been a lot of rides home there the last few years, but this year was awesome. We had a good time. I couldn't ask for much more, this year. So, and like I said, we worked hard to get where we're at. So, and I'm glad it paid off a little bit.
For sure. Now let's talk a little bit about you. Let's rewind and talk about where Chad Duvall comes from. And I know you guys from over in the Williamstown, West Virginia area. But how did Chad Duvall get involved in GNCC? When did it all happen? And let's talk a little bit about that early road and about those early days.
Basically, I was a bike guy. I motocrossed there. But, there was a pretty big group of us that did that for several years. It was kind of a every weekend thing. We did that, and then they got, a couple of guys got hurt, and then, the wives thing came, and the girlfriends things came, and it just kind of, petered out where it was just me and my wife, and, my mom, she was still enjoyed it. And it was just kind of a time for change, and, I kind of sold my bikes, and I like to do a little hunting and stuff, so, I kind of switched over to the quad thing, so I wasn't quite ready for a utility machine, but, I kind of went into a sport model, and I got to play around with that thing, and my brother-in-law got kind of started in southeastern Ohio, the District 11 hare scrambles, and he kept bugging me about coming racing, I said, man, I've had my fill of that, I was kind of done, so, finally one weekend I loaded up, I think I was on like a 1988 Yamaha Warrior, a good sport bike, but it was a tank. And
what year was this?
We go to this. Go ahead.
What year was it?
I think 80. I think a 88 model.
I mean, what year was this that you decided to go to your first GNCC or first hare scramble?
I want to say probably 1988. Probably is the one that.
1988. All right, well, go ahead. So you guys load up.
So we load up, and we go to this thing, and I'm pulling in there, and I remember my brother-in-law coming over to me, and he was talking. He said, "These guys, the guys that was racing the series, they were up and up." And I come pulling in this truck with this Warrior on there, and they're kind of laughing. This guy's riding this tank. And their brother-in-law looked at him and said, you might want to watch that guy ride that tank. He can ride. Well, I walked out there that day with second, and they were all kind of shaking their heads. And I thought, man, I got to race for 2 hours. I kind of got my money's worth. This was fun. This was my grassroots. Where I was a kid, you used to fire up the bike and go ride all day through the woods and the trails, and so I kind of enjoyed myself. So after that, I started went to a few of them, and I thought, I got to get rid of this machine. So I got the 250X, and I think I would always go to Blackwater every year, just one time, and then we actually had another GNCC that was called the Buckeye 100. It was in Waterford, Ohio, and I'd load up. We'd always go to that because I was only about 30 minutes from the house here. But here later to find out that I had only raced 2 of these things a year. Didn't really have a big background of it, but I went there and I'd actually beat Barry Hawk, was undefeated in the 4-stroke B class all year. And here's some local kid shows up, races, and beat him.
What?
Yeah.
So you became a big deal, but didn't even realize it, huh?
I didn't even realize it. You know what I mean? And then later on, a few years later, I kind of got on an R, and I go to the Starvation Point. They had a local race there, and they're like, "This Chad Duvall guy, this guy. Who is this guy?" And this is Barry's mom, and then was talking. They could never really figure out who I was.
So what happened there at Starvation Point?
It was a local race, and then they actually got to put, at that time, they actually got to put a face with a name, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They had no idea. But I think, I think the next year I even raced, I showed up, I raced it again, and I ended up winning the 4-stroke A class the next year, which I beat that David McCarroll, I think was his name. He was like the big 4-stroke A guy. I think he had a 350X on a 250X frame, or maybe an R frame or whatever. I remember as being a little guy, I was looking in the magazines, looking at these people, thinking, "Wow, these guys are awesome." And then here, I'm Aerostock shocks and stuff, and it was just pure talent. You know what I mean? And a little bit of luck going a long way. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how many years did you go? Just one or two here and there?
Yeah, I think when I say in '98, I think in 89. I think after I did a few of these races, I seen I was doing pretty good. I ended up getting an R, and I remember it was taking, it took me and my wife everything we had, extra money, and we bought a set of front work shocks, and I remember buying the IMS tank, and then we said we're going to go do these District 11s, and then we're going to do the 8 minimum GNCCs that we needed to do. So that year I think I won the District 11 championship, and I did my 8 GNCCs. I think I ended up finishing 12th that year, but I remember going, the biggest one I remember going to was Brownsville. And we took off out of the start, and all and behold, I got the whole shot. Probably the one and only one I ever got in my life. Being a rookie. So I got the whole shot, and it was about 4 or 5 turns later, I did the old 360 and was facing everybody coming back at me. But I think I went on to finish about 6th that day. But that's a pretty memorable story because that's where I became a whole different level. Is that I was watching Barry, and then the one that really stuck in my mind was Jimmy Trutenick. As we were going through the woods, these guys wouldn't turn their quads. They would actually, as you were coming to a turn, they would just use the bikes to float around these corners. It's hard to explain, but it was like they were pitching the quads sideways before they ever come to the turn, as we were rolling through these hills, going through the woods, and it was just, that day I walked around, and to this day I still remember us going through them woods and watching these guys, how they turn these quads without actually ever turning the handlebars. They would just glide these things. That's a pretty memorable story. I learned a lot that day, and then
that's pretty wild.
And then, from that day on, I just kept growing, and what I did, I just, the next race, if I only raced with them guys 2 laps or a lap, and I fell back, the next race, I would go 2 laps with them, and then I'd fall back. The next race, I might go 4 laps, and I'd fall back. And by the end of the year, I'd learned how to do it, you know what I mean? And after that, I got competitive at that caliber with them guys.
Wow. And you raced with about all the greats, I guess, from back in the day, huh?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was back with Bob, and Barry, and Jimmy Trutenick, Doug Whitmer, Tim Cooley. I was Ricky Madison. I mean, that was the guys then.
Right. Wow. And those are names that we still see every once in a while. We need to get like a Legends race or something together for you guys, man. Would you be willing to do something like that if we could get a lot of those guys back together?
Yeah, we've talked about that for years. It's just, somebody's really got to put their head down and put it all together. I mean, actually last weekend, Ricky Madison's still, he's still out there pounding laps. He's a 2-wheel guy now, but, his kid's into it, and I run into him and know him. He's there, I think this year before last, and they're still going strong. They're just, a different league, a little more Midwest, but they were in New York, and, Barry, he still, he slings a leg over a quad every day, goes to work, and, Jimmy Trutenick, I seen him at Powerline Park. I mean, these guys, once it's in your blood, it's always in your blood. It's hard to something to shake down. So.
Yes. Yes, it is. It's something hard to shake loose. That's for sure. And I mean, looking back on it now, let's go ahead and chronologize your career. So you go through this. You go through the 250-yard days. You go through the brunt of it all, man. I mean, through the domination of Barry Hawk with guys like Balance on the Rise, guys like Smiley out there, and Yoakley, and like you say, Kim Coonley, and shoot, names that I can't even remember off the top of my head right now. But I mean, there were a bunch of you. I can remember because I didn't do all the races back then, but I remember I would do like a starvation point every once in a while, when I would do like, what's that one over there in Fairmont where Mama Hill and Papa Hill and Baby Bear and all that kind of stuff is? Hard Rock, I think it was.
Hard Rock.
Yeah, so I did Hard Rock, and I did the Clarksburg 100, and places like that. And I remember, the ATV front lines used to seem so huge. I don't know, maybe they weren't, but I remember specifically back in the late 90s, whenever those four-strokes started coming around, and then that all started becoming a development and everything. And we had the pro class, and then the pro production class, which was all the four strokes on row number 2. And leading up to that, man, I mean, there was a lot of changes going on, and there's been a lot of changes since then in the whole sport and industry, and it's all seemed to be a positive right now.
Yeah, there ain't no doubt about that. It's it's good for everyone. I mean, basically, several years ago, we rode the 250Rs, so they come down to where they were starting to get older. They hadn't made them for several years, and that basically the aftermarket companies come in and they started having to build chassis and A-arms and swing arms, and back then, one of them, I mean, we're talking $20,000, to have one of them, which was awesome. It was a great opportunity to ride. It was, kind of being a working man and everything. And even though you had the support, it still was a very costly sport. And it, kind of got down to where it was hard to afford. Even with all my support. So I kind of started looking around or whatever. And then John Ayers actually was talking to some companies trying to get them involved with this, and Yamaha was kind of interested, and they had a Raptor. Basically, we talked about a Raptor a little bit. John said, their deal is can you win on a Raptor? I basically had to look and say, no, I can't win on a Raptor. I mean, there was just, I wasn't going to BS anybody. It was just, no, I can't win on a Raptor. It's just not a,
Right.
They're going to spend all this money and expect me to win, and I'm just going to be straight up. I don't think I could win on something like that. I'll do all right, but there wasn't the top day, so it kind of fizzled out there a little bit. So then, they started coming out with, the 400 EXs and stuff like that. And that was a perfect example, where we could grow this sport. They're making these, they're not making the 250R. So if I could go out there and do good on one of these, that's gonna help my support. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I endeavored to try to make this happen. And then Mickey Benlock came along and kind of offered me a ride there, and then Helper Suspension came along, and we developed this thing, and when it really came down to it, I loved the bike. It was probably one of the most funner bikes I'd rode in quite a while, and it actually re-sparked me because it was something different. It was something new, and it would only benefit the sport, because if Honda could build a production machine, when Rodney pulled up the line beside me and looked over and see I'm on a $20,000 roll machine versus me pulling up beside me, you're on a 400EX, I'm on a 400EX, you got a chance.
Right.
So it was, So I thought it would be a little more inspirational if you look down the line and everybody was on a 400EX or a Suzuki, 400, their version. Everybody would be equal instead of who had the most support or the most money. You know what I mean? It kind of equaled the field out a little bit. So, basically, you put a set of A-arms on it and a set of shocks, which realistically was more beneficial than buying a whole frame.
Yeah.
It would be like, say we go to a NASCAR race, you get in a full NASCAR car here, and you're in a Monte Carlo. I go over here to Pioneer Chevrolet dealership and get a Monte Carlo, and we line up at a NASCAR track.
Yeah.
If you went over and got a Monte Carlo and pulled up beside me off the showroom floor, wouldn't that be a lot more fun to race?
Yeah. Yeah, it would. It most certainly would, because, like you said, the playing field would be so much more even. And I see, I mean, it sparked. And I guess that's why when you would look across the road, that second row back there, it seemed like there was 25, 30 guys out there, ready to tackle it out there. And let's talk about it. I mean, realistically, I mean, how long did it take you to become competitive with the R machines on one of those off the showroom floor type ATVs, basically?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think we did that the first year, which actually I wasn't eligible to do it the very first year that they came out with it, because I had a conflict with the sponsor, I think Super Trap or whatever. If they were going to sponsor me and offer some money, I had to run the front row. So I actually ran the thing. I ran my 400EX in the pro class itself. I ran against the R's and everything else.
Right.
But then the following year, we said, we kind of changed the sponsors, and then I started. Well, actually, I think middle of the season, and I kind of fell through, and I dropped back to be a little more competitive for what I was doing. And I think I ended up finishing sixth. Then the next year I went out, for a full year of it. And then by then, William, I think he kind of seen the light too, and Suzuki maybe was going to help, and he came to the class too. And then me and him actually had a phenomenal year of battling back and forth of the production machines, you know what I mean? And then and between us, we were putting these on the podiums for overalls. So it was, in the meantime, the middle of the year, Billy even kind of switched over for a race or two, you know what I mean? I think he's seen it, this was coming. So he was doing some development. And then, then the following year, I think, we all kind of was all on the board about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there was a lot of, I'm sure, frustrations with that during those days, man. But to see what you guys have done, man, I can guarantee every frustration you went through in the building process, it's been worth it.
No, really, I mean, when it came down to it, it wasn't really much of a frustration. Like I said, I actually had a lot of fun with it. It was, a lot of fresh breath air. And I kind of enjoyed it, And now you can look back and say, look at these people, Once that took off, the factories, kind of jumped on board. Suzuki was there for a little while; they kind of fell back. Honda was there for a little bit; they kind of fell back. Yamaha's been strong there for several years. KTM jumped in there for a couple of years. I mean, a lot of these kids have actually had some salaries to be able to do this, at a lot higher level, which brought a lot of publicity, for the four-wheelers, and made it a major sport.
Now, speaking of what these kids have been able to do, and be able to make some money at it and stuff, and whenever you watch the races, and I'm not taking anything away from what we've seen in the past back when you guys used to battle, but I mean, Do you see the racing any better today than it was back then, or you seeing the same thing that we saw back then? Because I remember a lot of blowouts myself personally, and nowadays it seems like there's a lot more right down to the wire type battles, like what we saw at Loretta Lynn's even to wrap the season up with on Sunday.
Yeah, a lot of that's based on the whole program itself. Is now these guys are making salaries, kind of making a living at racing these things, and now it's so much more serious because they're living it day in and day out. It ain't going working 7 to 3 every day, and then come home and work on your bike and not try to ride it too much because you got to race that weekend. These guys are pounding out laps every day. They're training every day. And, the equipment's so much better. You're talking, a lot more technology here, so.
It is. It's gotten pretty high dollar anymore. I'm not saying you can't take a showroom model quad and go out there and be competitive and maybe even win, but it's not as easy as it was 10 years ago to take the same machine out and race it, kind of like whenever you guys first started developing them, I don't think. Or maybe it is.
No,
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off the base here.
No, as far as buying a production-based model and still going out there, as me looking at it now, you're right there. I mean, all you need is basically it's just your A-arms, it's a suspension, steering stem, and some handlebars, and a lot of knowledge. You know what I mean? And trying to get that thing. Cause to me, motor works, kind of far from what I think. You know what I mean? Because them 450s, they rock so well. 80% of it to me is the suspension and your machine working well, because you can only go so fast in between them trees unless you got your stuff working. You know what I mean? That thing's got to be riding on glass, and it's riding on glass. You can keep that throttle wide open.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, wow, I mean, it's become a science as much as anything anymore, hasn't it?
Yes, yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I look at it. I worked hard at it. I know Barry was pretty finicky about it, but when I kind of look back and I'd say, boy, when it really came. And I'm sure he probably looked at it, studied it. So, what's these guys doing? It's, probably Bill Balance came into that with the knowledge that was far past ours, that how important it was to make the bike work that well. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure he followed Perry around. He followed me around. You know what I mean? And basically, he learned so much, and he was so dedicated that if you probably ask him, I'm not going to speak for him, but if you probably ask him how important is your setup, he'll probably tell you that's one of your top priorities. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure. I know Bill Balance, that's one thing that they do a lot of over there at the Balanced camp is a lot of suspension tuning and things like that. And that's, as much as anything, I think, it makes or breaks the program sometimes, just like what you say. And it's down to the motors and how they're coming on with power and how they're geared. And it's a science. It's a technology. There's no doubt about it. Now, Chad, looking at the field of racers today in the ATV side of things, let's break it down. Let's take a look at this past season in particular. Chris Borch got his fourth GNCC title, and he is racking off wins like nobody's business out there. And you see the battles and the guys coming up. You got Walker Fowler. You got obviously Taylor Kaiser's always a key player. You've got Chris Bithell, always a key player. You've got Adam McGill, always a key player. These guys, and even Jared McClure, and there's becoming more and more guys that are key players each and every week. I mean, like this past week at Loretta's, we saw, I don't know if you were there or not, but we saw, I think, 6 different leaders and about 10 different lead changes during that race out there. And, I mean, I don't think it was from a lack of anybody actually letting anybody go by this last time. If you hear the stories these guys talk about, they just couldn't break away this past week.
Yeah, I mean, I went there and watched the race or nothing, but I know Thad, Thad, he was kind of watching it there, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, these guys finished within a second apart. That's how tight it was when they finished across the finish line." And I believe a lot of it. Loretta's is pretty fast. It's not got a lot of really technical to it, so them guys, can stay together pretty good. There's no chance of bottlenecks. It's, pretty fast-paced, but rough. And, I think everybody was just on their A game there at the end of the year. They wanted to put in a good finish, finish out the year with, trying to, build up a little bit of steam there for the sponsors, trying to drum in some more good sponsors for next year. So, everybody just had a phenomenal day.
Yeah, they did. They did for sure. And with that being said, now I know that you've had to pay attention to what's been going on throughout the course of the year, being there on Saturdays and stuff. What do you, as a racer that raced with people like that, say Barry Hawk or even the Ironman Bob Sloan back in the day, but probably more so than Barry Hawk and then Bill Balance, towards the end of your career and stuff. I mean, what kind of advice do you have for those guys that are beating themselves up week in and week out trying to beat this guy, and it seems like they've got him right where they want him, and then within the last half mile, man, somehow or another he pulls it out. I mean, what kind of advice do you have to those guys?
It's funny you say that. Barry broke my heart so many times. And you know how many races I would be leading, and it would come down to the last mile or so. And like I said, I was kind of a working man, and my time would be hanging out a little bit, and I'd be winning this race. There'd be no one around me. I'd get this thing in the bag, and next thing I know, he was by me. You know what I mean? I was like, where did it even come from? I was so upset. But I had to work and provide for the family, and I did the best I could. But he definitely broke my heart several times. I mean, Loretta's, I had him won all day. I mean, I'm coming in, I'm a mile from the finish line. I'm by myself, and then wham, there he is, and I didn't really have anything for him. So. Same thing at the other one there, West Virginia was talking about the water slide place there. I was by myself coming in. Bam, there he was, past me. Let's how we get away too. But basically, just you gotta minimize your mistakes. When it's just gotta come natural. Just minimize your mistakes, and you gotta just keep the momentum going.
What advantage does Chris Borich have over everybody else right now? And
I don't know. Chris is just a phenomenal rider, and he's so impressive because it's just like he's out there having a good time, and he makes it count when it counts.
Well, looks like for whatever reason we just lost these guys on here. So if you want to stand by for just a second, we'll get back with you in just a moment and get you continued here with our final wrap-up with Thad Duvall, and more in particular, Chad Duvall at this particular point. Also, still to come here on Quad Radio, we have got some interesting things coming up, which include 2 interesting young individuals by the name of Tyler Hamrick, and also one Kyle Fix going to be coming up here in just a little bit. So stand by as Quad Radio will return here in just a few moments.
Raise 'em up now. Are you feeling me? Raise 'em up, raise 'em up now. Step back. Yeah, 'cause this is gonna be big. This is gonna be big. Yeah, this is gonna be big. And we'll go on to fight another day.
From the Empire